Welcome to another episode of the podcast, Whether or Not and to What Degree, with your first alert weather team. And I'm so excited to have Ashley Rehnberg back with us. It's become a tradition. We've been talking about all the forecast challenges in our area, and each season definitely brings those challenges. But I mean, I would say winter certainly throws at us some of the most intense ones. Would you say that?
Yes, and lots of questions about snow in particular. How much are we going to get? Are we going to see snow?
Absolutely. I mean, that's usually the top of mind. And when we're as starved for snow as we are dealing with several hundreds of days drought. I've seen so many posts on social media about it. People are really desperate. So hoping that this El Niño pattern will change things. And like you and I were discussing earlier, it's again, not a done deal for snow, but certainly more opportunities come when we get a pattern like this.
Yeah, Kendra, so you were talking about El Niño, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here real quickly and put up the slide just to show y'all if you're watching from home, just so you can see it visually. So El Niño is actually part of ENSO. ENSO is an acronym for El Niño Southern Oscillation. So the El Niño Southern Oscillation is a reoccurring climate pattern involving changes in the temperatures of waters in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. And on periods ranging from about 3 to 7 years, the surface waters across a large swath of the tropical Pacific Ocean, they either warm or cool anywhere from about 1 to 3 degrees Celsius compared to normal. And basically what happens is during an El Niño, we typically see above average sea surface temperatures in this region. The low-level surface winds, which normally blow from east to west along the equator, they either weaken or in some cases they swap directions. They start blowing the other direction, so from west to east. And in general, the warmer ocean water anomalies, the stronger the El Niño. So the warmer the water temperatures, the stronger the El Niño. And so that's why we're currently in an El Niño pattern. And then La Niña is the opposite of that. So it's the below average sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. And this is normally when you have easterly winds along the equator, they become stronger. So in general, the cooler the ocean temperatures, the stronger the La Niña.
Yeah, and I always think it's really interesting to think about how all of that ties into our local weather. I mean, I think every time I begin to launch into El Niño, I'm always like, I know it's hard to believe, but we're dealing with temperatures in the eastern Pacific actually tying to weather that we get in the southeast, and it's a pretty big tie.
It is, and basically it can have a wide variety of impacts here. So just looking at the current ENSO forecast, it's expected to continue in the northern hemisphere, really with the 60% chance of a transition to ENSO neutral. And ENSO neutral just basically means it's neither La Niña or El Niño. It's just kind of in between. And that may last through April when we get a transition to that neutral phase. But currently right now, there's a 54% chance of a historically strong El Niño during this past November through this current January season. So an event this strength would potentially be the top 5 of the El Niños that we've seen since 1950. So that's pretty impressive. It could be pretty strong. And Kendra, as you were talking about, it can have impacts across the southeast. Even though it's all the way in the tropical Pacific, we can feel the impacts here. So we typically in the southeast during an El Niño receive above normal precipitation on average. You have to keep that in mind, on average. So this usually leads to increased storminess, which results in slightly cooler temperatures because of the increased cloud cover. And we tend to have a more active southern branch of the jet stream during El Niño, so this allows us to get more weather disturbances that develop low pressure systems that eventually move across the deep south. So basically, we have more opportunities to potentially get a winter storm. But the caveat that we like to point out is that you need to have the cold air in place. We can have all these storm systems going over the area, but if we don't have that cold air in place, we can't get the winter precip. So I like to explain it like this. Think of it like your chances of winning the lottery. If you buy more tickets, your odds of winning increase. If you buy less tickets, your odds of winning decrease. But just because you buy a ticket doesn't mean that you will win. So just because we're in an El Niño does not necessarily mean that we will see above normal snowfall or snowfall at all, Kendra.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, we're gonna have more chances, but yeah, that cold air. Just we're taping this on December the 18th, and we've just seen this nor'easter that's still affecting the East Coast, and also brought crazy wind and rain along the Carolina coast. If it had been colder, that kind of system could have had huge impacts when it comes to snow, but instead it was a rainmaker, and it's very possible we could get quite a number of those during an El Niño season, where we get those active lows coming up, that perfect track for snow. But if we don't have a good Arctic air mass that's locked in, we're just going to end up with really frustrating cold rain. And I can remember a lot of El Niños that pack quite a bit of that.
Yeah, we had some local research done here in our area specifically for the Western Carolinas, and it showed that El Nino winters tend to have above normal snowfall. However, there are also several notable El Nino winters that had no snowfall in Greenville, Spartanburg, and the Charlotte area.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the winter of 2015 to 2016, we had the strongest El Nino since 1950, and we're kind of competing with that potentially right now. And yet both Charlotte and Greenville, Spartanburg, had below normal snowfall. And then just to keep in mind, the mountains, in Western North Carolina usually always have a better chance to see snowfall just because of their elevation and their access to colder air, versus us further east of the mountains. We usually don't have, we have the precip, or the cold air usually chasing the precip. Mm-hmm. So often we might have the low pressure system or the moisture come through, but then the cold air doesn't come through till after. So that can be kind of a challenge with winter weather in this area just in general. But with El Nino, of course, we get more and more low pressure systems. But the question is, can we get the cold air in place with it as well, Kendra?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I always think it's interesting, too, with El Nino winters. Often we're near average, maybe a little bit below average temperature-wise. And sometimes that can be a little bit confusing to people just because of the fact that a lot of times El Niños bring more cloudy days, more days of precipitation, and that's going to keep temperatures down a bit. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get the extreme temperatures. You think back to last Christmas. That was a La Niña winter, and that was classic. And, from my experience with La Nina, you get the amplified pattern that will bring those opportunities for extreme cold. I feel like with El Nino, it seems like that's a little less common, but whenever we do get an outbreak like that, that's when we have to start really watching the Gulf, because El Nino will end up influencing more of an active pattern.
Exactly. So again, we always have to say that caveat, right, Kendra? We can't, say that enough. People get excited that we're in an El Nino, so that means, above average snowfall, but that's on average, and not every winter is average, right? We have different things that happen in the atmosphere. We have to have the setup. We have to have the moisture. We have to have the cold air. We have to have both, or we don't get that winter weather. Otherwise, you end up with a cold, dry day, or you just end up with a cold, wet rain, like you said earlier.
It is so true. And, one of them, I don't know, not everybody loves snow, I guess, but I feel like snow makes people a lot happier than those really cold, rainy days. Because in my opinion, some of the worst weather you can get is like 38 degrees and raining, it's just.
I'm the exact opposite, but most people in our office are they call it a waste of a storm. Like this past weekend, we're talking about the storm. Mm-hmm. It was a waste of a good low pressure system because we didn't have the cold air in place, but I thought it was exciting because I just love rainy days with no severe weather, no snow, because I can still get out. Mm-hmm. But, we're in the drought like you're talking about, so that helps add to the dent there. But it would be nice, I think, to see some snow this year, even for me. But, sometimes that can provide challenges, as getting to work in the middle of the night can be difficult if the roads aren't plowed, or if they are plowed but they haven't quite gotten to your neighborhood yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when weather is your livelihood, you start to the big blockbuster snows lose their appeal a little bit sometimes because of the fact that we will be ramping up our workload. My kids would be super excited for that, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say at least with El Nino, not only do we have at least, for chances of snow a little higher, no guarantees, but at least with this drought that we've been in all fall, we can feel confident that going into this winter, we're likely going to see more active patterns, more opportunities for at least that beneficial rain that comes with El Nino. And I feel like that's, at least that part's kind of a done deal. Precipitation is often a good bit higher in this pattern.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that's usually guaranteed, not always, but most of the time we see above, we have more moisture and more cloudiness like you talked about, but the question is, are we going to get the cold air or not? So
That's right. Well, I always appreciate you talking to me about these things, and we've got a lot more to get through the winter, so stay tuned. Ashley and I will be getting back together to talk about different types of winter precipitation, and I'm sure we will be in contact a good bit because I feel like El Nino already has us on our toes this season. We haven't even officially started winter yet, so I'll look forward to chatting with you through all of our ways of communication, and thank you for keeping all of us here in the upstate posted as winter weather develops, Ashley.
absolutely, that's what we're here for, to help rumor control as well as to provide you with forecast information.
Absolutely. It's a great collaboration and we appreciate it. All right. We will see you on our next podcast. And if you have any suggestions for topics for us, and we would love to address them, just email us, kendra.kent@foxcarolina.com. And again, Ashley, thanks for joining us and have a great day.